Going to be showing up. Can you go ahead and get started with the workshop? I am pretty quickly just going to turn it over to Alcina. I am saying that correct. Am I saying that correct? Okay, great. A few months ago, we were awarded a FEMA brick grant to hire a consultant to help us develop a local hazard mitigation plan. There are, in addition to benefits of planning, it also opens us up for hopefully to be competitive with some federal funding to support the items that are identified as priorities within the plan. And we are very fortunate that Alcina is our consultant to help our community through this planning process. She has a tremendous amount of experience in this world. And from one conversation, I feel like we're in incredibly capable hands, and really she's here to help us make sure that we maximize this opportunity to address community priorities. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Alcina, if that is okay.
Thank you very much for the introduction as well as praises. And you basically did my presentation for me right there. So made my job easier. So my name is Alcina Brennenstuhl. I am the owner of Dynamic Consulting LLC based out of Dover Foxcroft, Maine. In my former life, I was a firefighter and paramedic within North Carolina, moved up to Maine, got into emergency management, fell in love with hazard mitigation, grants management, and grant writing, and here we are. So I have a short presentation for you folks because I really want to hear from you guys, your feedback on that. So am I able to share my screen?
I might need to make you a co-host in order to do that.
Okay. Just let me know when I'm ready, or when you're ready, rather.
Should be all set. Give it a try.
Okay. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So thank you all for coming out to tonight's workshop. I appreciate the time. So this is basically got my spiel of my history. So this is just the title page there. Let me see if it's actually going to let me move, advance. There we go. All righty. So what is hazard mitigation? I know this word's been thrown around everywhere. Hazard mitigation basically is the efforts to reduce, eliminate long-term risks to life and property from hazards. The goal is to build more resilient and sustainable communities. The importance of hazard mitigation: reduce losses, save money, and you protect your natural resources. And if anyone, as a caveat, anyone wants slides after this presentation, you're welcome to them. And then I'm also providing to the town so they can post them on the website as well to review for later. So FEMA's designated 18 natural hazards, which luckily we do not have to deal with probably half of these, but half of them we do. And then we also have the emerging hazards, which is climate change and pandemics. So some mitigation examples, I chose some obviously that would pertain to you folks. Flood control. You guys flood, you're surrounded by water. So some mitigation examples would be stormwater drainage systems, improving your culvert systems, stormwater runoff to prevent flooding, as well as like retention ponds and wetland restoration. This gives the ability to hold any excess water and then release it gradually so it reduces your immediate flood risk. We have wildfire prevention, producing fire breaks, vegetation management, clearing vegetation, trimming trees, clearing brush, and then also fire resistant building materials. So thinking ahead as far as I don't know what your building codes are, um, but implementing some fire resistant materials within building codes for certain construction. And then coastal protection. So seawalls and barriers, which you folks are very familiar with, which are physical structures built along the coast to stop or protect against storm surges and sea level rise, sand dune restoration, and then living shorelines. So steps in a hazard mitigation planning. First step is identifying your hazards, which I think you folks are very familiar with what your hazards are. Assessing also your vulnerabilities. So what areas, structures, and your populations that are most at risk. Setting goals, meaning prioritizing your actions that reduce the risk. Develop and then implement strategies. So that might include policy updates, policy formations, infrastructure changes, and then also public outreach. And then finally, evaluating and revise. So this plan is going to be something that will have to be re-upped every 5 years. So once FEMA approves it, you have a 5 year period of time where you kind of you can collect your information and get ready for your next installation of this back to FEMA. So how can you get involved? Well, biggest thing is input, community input. That's a huge participation. So currently, right now, we have a survey, a community survey that's been posted. I think it was the second week of September, and it's going to run until the end of October. I've gotten 49 responses. Doesn't sound like much, but you'll be surprised. It actually is uh, quite a bit. And, I'm sorry. And staying informed. Understand your risks of your area. I think you guys are very close-knit community, so I know you probably are very familiar with your own risks. And then also your community response plans. And then also what you can do is prepare your home or business as well. There's steps that you can personally take. So implementing personal mitigation measures, such as securing furniture if you know storms coming, installing special windows. And then also if you're in a fire prone area or if you have, making a buffer around your home or critical infrastructure to make it less prone to fire. So the benefits of mitigation efforts. Well, lives saved is your primary one, which prevent injuries and then fatalities. You reduce the risk of recovery costs. So in this little graph right to the right, for every dollar that you spend, you save $6 in federal funds. So that's tremendous. And obviously it's broken down into like riverine flooding, which luckily you don't have a river going through your island. But yeah, your hurricane surge, for every dollar spent, that's $7 saved federally and so on. Then community resilience. This strengthens your ability to bounce back after a disaster. So if you have, a very greased wheel of a community that knows how to bounce back and are self-reliant and resilient, it will make coming back from a disaster, which unfortunately you guys you're actually working through a FEMA process right now from a declaration from last year. But it just gives you a better ability to bounce back from that. And then environmental protection. It reduces your impact on the natural ecosystem. So, amazing thing that Shay mentioned is funding opportunities. So this hazard mitigation plan is a wonderful tool to leverage on a multitude of different grant opportunities. So your main ones are you have FEMA funding, which is one annual One is the BRIC grant, which is building resilient infrastructure and community. And then also, and that's a requirement to have this plan in place in order to apply for that grant. And then as well as the post-disaster funding, which is your hazard mitigation grant program, also known as a 404. These are two things that are hazard mitigation plans are a must-have. Then you also have your state and local grants that our state offers funding for resiliency and community infrastructure improvements. And this is a tool. This document is a tool basically to leverage on that. And then private sector grants. So companies and private companies, foundations may also offer grants for hazard mitigation and community resilience, which also, if you can provide this document, once again, just makes your case stronger on that and hopefully grade higher. And now let's hear from you. Does anybody have any questions? What I just covered? It was very short, brief, high level overview.
Go ahead, Carl.
I'm just curious if we have a community response plan. I've never seen it. Do we have such a thing?
They do, Fred keeps the binder of it at the public safety office. And so for the community response plan and the emergency action plan.
So is that something that we all get to see? Like,
Yeah, if you,
It looks like Fred's online. I don't know if he wants to respond.
You should have the emergency operations plan right there with you.
Where is that, Fred?
I can't see who's in the room. Is Janet there?
She is not.
Oh, okay. Then in the where the clerks work, there's an orange binder and it's the emergency operations plan. That's the same one you guys sign off on every year.
Right. Do you have another one that's specific to community expectations for emergency? Or is that all covered under the EOP?
It's all under the EOP.
Okay.
Choice is clear. I'm Austin Ontario, and I approve this message. We vote to protect the social security.
That was
We work
good.
hard. As family caregivers deserve support.
If Carrie can't find it right now, they can present to during normal working hours anytime that the town office is open to.
All the
Is that
reasons
the plan
why.
we're working on in this meeting? Like,
So-
what the plan is.
I
Go
There's a
ahead.
copy I believe it's also on the town website. I'm not quite sure about that, but I believe they said it was on the town website. And there's a copy available in the clerk's office. Janet has a copy. There's a copy at the school. And we have a copy for display at the public safety office.
I guess Carrie brought me the copy here.
Okay.
So I guess, how would we as citizens know about this and know what our part would be during a crisis?
South Korea and Ukraine.
They've actually put it out on Constant Contact, I thought before. All they have to do is call the public safety office or call the town office.
So in a crisis, that would not be what we could do. I'm just curious, how does this get conveyed and employed in a crisis?
You're kind of echoey. I really can't hear you that well.
Sorry, if you speak more toward this white device, you'll have better
Okay,
line.
this way. So there are these copies around town, but how would we as citizens know what to do in a crisis? It kind of brings me to my biggest.
It should be on the town website. That was the whole intention of putting it out, was so that everybody could go to a mutual place and find it. Whether or not it is, I don't load the website, so I can't tell you that. You'd have to talk to Carrie and Tina about that, but it should be right on the town website.
So are we each supposed to print it out? Because in a storm, we're not gonna have that asset. Electricity's gone. So then how do we know what to do?
You should be training in it, first of all, and then second of all, you, I mean, if you're trying to get a copy of this to every resident, I can't answer that. You guys have your way of getting stuff out to the public. This is kind of a Janet question, but for me, we made it available at the school. We made it available to the town office. We made it I don't think there's one up at the library, but there's a copy at public safety. As far as getting information out there, we do the same routine as we always did. We use Facebook, we use constant contact, and that's pretty much all I can tell you.
In Portland, and when we had more sunshine.
It's so
Made it into the 70s. It's
we're in
77.
the middle of a crisis.
What I'm trying to ask you is, do you want a copy, a pamphlet for everybody at their house?
Well, I think I would need training to know what I'm supposed to do. Like, say we're cut off up island. Is there a copy of this? Is
Well,
the tower
Well,
off?
okay, my question for you is then, is when I bring that in every year to have that signed off on, do you keep a copy of it and read it?
Mainly in the 50s.
Well, no, I mean, I wanna know as a community member, what are we supposed to do? So is it training that we need?
Who am I talking to? I don't even know who I'm talking to.
This is Cara.
Cara, there's a copy, as far, I don't know, because I don't go on the town website much, but you might be able to get a copy of it on the town website. If you don't have a copy on the town website, you can come to me and Carrie anytime, and we would make you a copy in a minute. We don't dispense it. I don't get involved in dispensing it outside of that. I provide it to the usual places, and that's what we do. And we maintain the emergency action plan. You would have to talk to the clerks out front. They would make a copy for you. I'm sure that if you need a copy before you leave tonight, I'm sure Carrie would make it, or if you need me to come up and make it, I would make it.
If I can, I think that everybody went in two different directions with it. Cara, this isn't necessarily a meeting in order to establish what the protocols will be for each individual citizen.
This is the
It
town
is-
plan.
Right.
This
Hold
is
on, Fred.
the government plan. This is the town government plan. This is how we work as a municipality.
Right.
Well, so how do we practice it? It is my question about how does all that information bound up trickle down to us? Because I've never heard of a training or any way to learn about
There
this.
isn't a training,
So,
but I can make a copy of that for you.
and
I
this
thought-
does
It means
this
nothing.
doesn't
if I'm not-
necessarily go through onto an individual basis. If you're wondering about what do you do if you're going to be evacuated, if you're wondering what you're going to do if the power is out for an extended period of time, different things like that. Each one
Are
of those.
you asking about are you asking about public
Fred, hold on just a
information?
second. Fred, hold on. I'm
I
explaining
can't
to
tell
you.
who's
Cara.
talking.
This is Melissa Burns.
Okay, thank you, Melissa.
I
Hold on
guess
one
it's
second, Fred.
Public information without electricity, yes. And how do we know what to do?
Reviewing it and knowing it ahead of time is part of the mitigation for it. And so instead of having it where it's not a step-by-step guide, but it is going to, part of our mitigation process is going to be to have a familiarity with it. That way you can use then your best course of resources to what you have to help guide you through. And so, and it is on the town website. Pete was just able to look it up in different things. But then we can go ahead and make sure that there is accessibility so that people can then take that onto their own responsibility to know it ahead of time, not in the time of. Yes, yes.
So we have these.
And that's already approved and that is the plan. And now this is what do we do for bigger things, for the flooding, for the shore erosion. And so this is more big scheme as opposed to smaller dedicated.
So this awareness that we don't have a community response plan, like we don't know what to do.
So all of these, an individual community member is not expected to do a single action in preparation for the town.
for him to drop out of the
you
race.
guys will take care of yourselves. That book that you're looking at is the plan that the different, like, fire, police, town office, emergency operations plan, that,
Right.
that's what you guys will see going on as a community action plan. Because it's the plan for the community, not as an individual.
Right. So I still don't really understand how it filters to individuals. Do we have that?
No.
Do we have, okay, so we don't really have what I'm asking about. Okay, so it's a
Can I-
question.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I guess that's a big concern I
Can I-
have. You know, the way you find out there are rocks flying at the Narrows is you try to drive there and there are rocks flying over the Narrows and you can't get home.
Better score.
Can I speak a minute?
Yeah.
So it's.
Okay, Kara, what we do before there's any big storm coming in is we use constant contact before the power goes out, before all the things happen. We usually let people know where they can go for a warming shelter and let them know the hours of operation. So that usually comes out prior to a storm, usually within 24 hours, maybe 30 hours before the storm. So and I just talked to the town office the other day about having a banner that goes across the town webpage, which gets to a lot of people, that would give emergency situation. Then, if need be, if it's a big enough storm, we can put information out on radio stations and on TV stations and have it delivered that way. That's how we get information out before the storm. Now, we have been surprised with storms before too. When we had a couple of the ultra bursts there a few summers ago, one that actually cut a diagonal right down through our island. We didn't know that would come, and nobody was able to prepare for that. So there is some merit to what you're saying. And as technology advances, we're trying to catch up with it and use it at every opportunity we can. I promise you that if we know something big's coming, we'll probably have firefighters coming up your road, letting people know, or we'll get information out to a neighborhood communicator that can get information around. It's not a perfect system, but it is the system we use, which has actually been effective through the last 20 years that I've been doing this. And if there's an opportunity to improve, we will take that. I can guarantee you that.
We still have a lot of news for you coming up tonight.
Just
Coming up at 5:30.
one other thing, the kind of thing that we have, started to talk about has not, like, nothing has been implemented. There's no, like, specific plan for implementation, but as an example is like what the school does. The school has an email and a text message system that you can sign up for, so that if something is going on, something, there's a change in schedule or something going on with the buses, that alert is sent out to people who have signed up for the system as an alert. Obviously it only works if your cell phone's charged and you have access to a computer, but it's, it's one type of communication system that we have talked a little bit about, particularly around kind of the storm surge situations that we experienced in the past couple of storms.
Does our town do something like that for people who aren't connected with the school? Is there?
Right now, the only thing that the town uses Constant Contact as the email messaging service to send out responses, which is very similar. I mean, it's a similar, it doesn't have a texting system, but it's, it sends out the email blast for information to be shared quickly.
So I guess my question is, how are we improving our networking between state, local, and citizens? It was very faulty when I worked at the ferry, and I think people still look to Facebook, but it seems like our communication network needs to be from the source, not from that kind of social media stuff that can get facts or not facts mixed up. And it's something that, I couldn't get home from the ferry twice, and that was more than a year ago. So the storm was like a year and a half ago, and I haven't seen the communication improve, and I think we really need to have that as a priority. People are always confused and answering because there's no information coming directly. And it sounds like the school has figured it out, and maybe we should all be part of the school communication if it works, because it was so frustrating when I worked for the ferry. The town, the town communication was terrible, the state was worse. And I didn't know I couldn't get home from the ferry several times. Nobody alerted me that the rocks were spitting at the Narrows. So I've had really scary situations where I was out driving because there's no communication. So I would really love to know our plan to improve our local Islesboro to Lincolnville, state to Islesboro from the source, not counting on Facebook to answer. I don't know if that's real if I look on there, but a lot of people count on it and go there.
So just, Alcina, is that sound, I mean, that kind of communication goal within the hazard mitigation plan, is that, does that feel kind of appropriate, or how is that addressed generally from your perspective? Looking
So-
at specific hazards, or can you speak a little bit to how that fits into this planning effort?
Yeah, so we've kind of like gone two separate ways, but which is fine because I'm well versed in both of these because I've built out communication plans for actually I'm working on my second town now, just this year for that. But so a hazard mitigation plan is a high level looking at natural hazards that we go ahead and get verified. Like, so this report will come out, the state will review the report, and then this report then gets to FEMA and gets approval. And you're going to use this report as kind of like, a leveraging opportunity. And then it's also basically a threat assessment, hazard assessment for your area. And then what we were also discussing about was an EOP, an emergency operations plan, which is completely different from what I'm currently working on. But it does overlap because there is going to be information from the EOP that will be within the hazard mitigation plan. And so, emergency operations plan is basically a breakdown of like what your local government, so as a town, town officials are going to be doing during an emergency whatever it might be, whether it be a natural disaster, man-made or a technological type of thing. And so, and that it'll define its role, your roles, the local, and everything starts local, so local, then county, then state, then federal. Um, so yeah, and then on top of that, I can speak a little further as far as the communications part. It sounds like your school already has developed some form of texting type of thing to say, hey, no school or whatever, it's going to be a 2 hour delay and that kind of thing. So with two communities in this past year, I've helped them roll out, or one's still in the process, but we're rolling out an emergency notification system that actually was funded by the state of Maine because our county has a hazard mitigation plan that was approved now 2 years ago, or last year rather, 2023, and so they got funding from the state of Maine for the use of this emergency notification system to be kind of like what is the word I'm looking for? It's kind of because it reaches vulnerable populations. So not everybody has cell phones, not everybody has cell service. Our county, we're lucky if we have a 50%, coverage area. You folks seem like you have better internet than we do, which I'm very impressed. I'm very happy to hear that. So with the communication aspect, you can get notifications via cell phone, text messages, voicemail, especially if you don't know the number, the program will leave you a voicemail. If you download their app, you can get it through their app. They'll send you, you can get it through email if you have some residents or TTYL. I mean, every method that you can possibly think of will, aside from door knocking, right? You will get messages out and it's real-time alerts. And yeah, so this is something that can be part of the hazard mitigation plan. And then also with this, you can say, hey, we have X, Y, and Z, and then you can apply for funding and then use the hazard mitigation plan to say, this is why we need an emergency alert software or system.
Fred, go ahead. I see your hand raised.
I would like to recommend, well, first I'd like to say that over the years that we've been doing this, we've tried different methods of communications. Some work and some don't. I've never been convinced that cellular messages are the most effective way to do it. And since because you can't always get good cellular reception, especially when you live down on the east side of the island, especially down on East Shore Drive. That places like that, you can't always get cell reception. And then you add weather on top of that, that really complicates it. That's why through the years, since the town got broadband, we've really tried to capitalize on getting electronic information out there. We also have trained, and we have in our plans, that if we need to, we can send firefighters to multiple roads, and they can go up and down those roads getting information to people, which is what they do in a lot of other towns, especially very rural towns. We've been looking into this for years, and we use what works. And good for us that we have, like Alcina said, we have broadband, which is always expanded. Now, I will tell you that the older I get, the less I look at the computer, the less I look at the phone. So I understand where cars come from. You know, we got to have a way to get information out there for people that are not connected all the time. They're either working or whatever. I will tell you that I've actually talked with Mert, and we've been thinking about why not go back to the old fire horn system, mounting one up on the transfer station, mounting one on the town office, mounting those emergency horns like they have with tornadoes in the south around at strategic points on the island. And then when that horn goes off, people can go and check their social media or email. Most everybody has email. And we're a small community. We can actually determine who wouldn't be connected, and then we can target them in other means. So I feel pretty good about what our system is. And Tara, I feel good enough to tell you that in front of the select board. And nothing's perfect. You're never going to find anything perfect. And I feel bad that you've had a bad experience trying to get home, but so hasn't 750 other people that have tried to get to where they're trying to go. So what I would do is I would go to the town office in the morning, get a copy of the plan. If you can't get a copy there, you come see me personally, and I will make that copy up for you, and I'll even put it in a binder for you. Everybody else, public information is what we have and what we can do with what our capabilities are. I still don't completely support cellular communication because it doesn't always work, and we've had it fail on us before. But other than that, that's all I have to say, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks, Fred.
I think something like the fire horn is a very good idea, but we also need to know where to go. We need to be trained if 30 roofs blow off up island, we don't have a place to go. And we need to come up with a shorter term plan. I know we have future plans of what to do, but coming up this winter, if we get a 150 knot storm, we need a plan. And I think we don't have the kind of on the ground training that I did experience at the ferry as far as active shooter drills and what do we do? And I mean, it's real training. It's reliable and regular so that, you have a plan. Like, I do not feel like if we get 150 120 maybe when it hits land. I don't know what to do. I want to know what to do and who do we need to help? Who are the vulnerable people who are gonna need water and food? And when we're cut off up island, which will happen again this winter, I'm quite certain, what do we do? Like, I think we need a plan for this year, not just always in the future. And as I see the communities that didn't have plans and got slammed, I hope we're not gonna be one of those communities. But at the moment, I feel as vulnerable as the people way over in the Carolinas who did not expect to be hit by a hurricane, and there they were. It just seems like we need to do serious planning about where do we go if our house gets blown off the foundation? Where are some resources where we still water and food for people who need it? Like, this is real, and I feel like we keep putting it in the future, like this conversation.
Carter, we do have warming shelters up island and down island, as Fred mentioned, ahead of storms, making sure that people are reminded that there are these places to go and shelter. And I think also the public safety office and, our neighbors who volunteer for, in the fire department, in the, emergency response, are certainly tracking and, when they hear about somebody who is in need or having an emergency, are tracking that and they're using that kind of information to divert their resources to those priorities in the event of an emergency.
What do we have up island? I'm not aware that we have a warming.
The sporting club.
Oh, I never knew that. So how do we find out about these plans? Like, I never knew that. I mean, I just thought we didn't have a solution up island.
Are you on the email list for constant contact?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that does go out before all of them, that the community center will be opened up, the
I knew
hours, the
that.
times.
Yeah.
But it's always the community center and the sporting club.
We'll
And
make
both of them together, both of them with times, both of them with contact people. And so,
Yeah, we'll make sure that it'll be specific
I
in
never
front
knew
of
that.
the next storm.
I definitely knew the
Okay.
community center was and people got water there. So is there water there at the sporting club?
yep, and they have a generator that was done in order to help, make them compliant with everything.
If I could just jump in,
Yeah.
that silence here. I've have to say that I think we veered possibly away from why we originally sat down here at 5 o'clock to talk with Alcina, forgive my pronunciation. Would it be beneficial perhaps, or be a appealing idea to perhaps coordinate a meeting with public safety, with the community, and open it up to say, here, let's familiar, ahead of winter time, can we sit down with some emergency officials and go have a brief rundown and just go over how some people can familiarize themselves with this plan, so we're not having the unfortunate duty of informing someone like Cara of the warming center that is like a block from our house, so to speak. And then maybe we could kind of redirect back to, what would that, do you think that would be good, Cara, to have like a town-wide, open the doors to a town-wide, familiarize yourself with our emergency plan?
Yeah, I think that, and as well cards
Yeah.
postcards that everybody can post on the refrigerator. Here's our emergency plan.
So
I've
maybe-
never seen any of that in writing or
Okay.
poster.
Or would that be something that you would be amenable to hosting a meeting, opening the doors? Ooh. Guess not.
Fred?
Fred, are you still there?
Yeah, you need me. The sound was cutting out.
Oh, I'm wondering if perhaps along with what Tara's been saying, if it wouldn't be a good idea to, ahead of winter time really setting in, having a publicly open meeting with yourself and perhaps Mert, maybe a couple people from the ambulance committee, to go over the basics that we're talking about right now. Where to look for communications, where to go for heating center, these sort of tackleable issues, so we can kind of revert back to
Industry.
why we're here.
Sure.
That seemed like a happy compromise just for the purpose of, right now, we've got 15 minutes before.
Sure. Sounds good.
This message. Big drug companies were ripping off diabetics like me.
Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
Cap insulin at $35.
Oh, bad idea.
Thank you, Pete.
And thanks for raising the question, Cara. So just moving back to kind of that, though, bigger picture hazard mitigation plan, I guess one example I know that the Sea Level Rise Committee is very interested in is making sure, as you said, the coastal, storm surge, vulnerabilities are included in the plan, because we have identified a grant possibility that, you know, could be in the $1 million+ range to help us implement infrastructure. So I know that has been, I guess I'll bold and underscore that just in the planning effort, but I guess, are there other particular things or themes that you have seen from the 49 responses that you have received so far on the survey, Alcina?
Yeah, so I can kind of briefly go through some of the questions. I'm not going to read every single one of them, but so half of your residents, I asked the question of like, how prepared is your household to deal with an event, and half of them say somewhat prepared. There is a small sliver, I'll say maybe 4%, that say they're very well prepared, and then you have a pretty good chunk, almost 40%, saying that they're adequately prepared for a hazardous event. Um, and then let me scroll down to the, let's see. So another question was posed. How do you feel about the statement? I think it is important to provide education and programs to promote community members to take action to reduce their exposure and risks to national hazards. And 61% of your respondents strongly agree. So definitely promoting education to the public is a big thing that they want to see. Also about 30% say somewhat agree. So that definitely education portion is a large part. Then we have, I asked a question as to what steps people have taken to prepare themselves for disasters, and majority have answered they know how to maintain and work a fire extinguisher, they have extra medical supplies, smoke detectors, they know where their utility cutoffs are. So that's like 75% of your residents answered that they have a pretty decent hold on that. As far as they don't have escape plans, or emergency plans per se for their homes. So I would encourage maybe during that emergency operations plan and meeting to maybe get folks to make plan for their homes. How they want to receive information, I asked, and they said by internet. 81% responded that way. And then below that was social media at a 35%. And then public meetings was another high scoring one as well. The other ones kind of were in between. And let's see, try to get to the hazards here because there's quite a few questions. And then a question was asked about during the past 5 years, have you or someone in your household experienced a natural disaster? And clearly, you folks have experienced it, so have we. And it's a severe winter weather. 78% of the respondents responded to that. 43% had issues with beach erosion, bluff erosion, And then 39% said that they had sea level rise, coastal flooding issues, flood issues in general. Summer weather ranked very low. I've been tracking your weather during the summer. I want to move there because you guys are like consistently in the 70s and a nice coastal breeze where I'm sweltering and usually haying, and it's not comfortable. So you might see me as a summer resident at a tent, or I might try to find a way to swing it, spend my summers down with you folks. Um, but yeah, so that was like a pretty eye-opening in the year X. But the majority of the respondents are pretty well prepared. Um, though once again, I am a big proponent of community engagement and outreach, education. That is a big thing that I do in every job that I take on. Just trying to get the word out about, hey, do you have an emergency plan for your own home? It's one thing, yeah, to have a community plan, but there is a level of responsibility on you to go ahead and take care of yourself. And a good rule of thumb, as we are all learning from what's happened down in North Carolina, Tennessee and everything like that is, before feds arrive, it's always going to be local, right? So, and before feds arrive, you need to be able to take care of yourself as a community and personally, honestly, by yourself for at least a minimum of 2 weeks. That is kind of given the benchmark on that because yes, there are resources out there, but what if the entire state's affected? Like all of Western North Carolina literally basically wiped off the face of the map, and you couldn't get in, couldn't get out, and here we are, I don't know how many weeks at this point, and they're still having difficulties getting folks in or getting supplies and everything in. So it's been a lot of private individuals that have taken that on, and now we have government officials that are being able to help now that roads are being rebuilt and accessible. So
Also, I just see that Fred has his hand
Yep.
raised.
I just want to make a quick statement that every year, we didn't do it during COVID. Every year we have a large scale exercise, an emergency response exercise. We've done active shooters twice. We did a forest fire on the north end of the island once, and we actually had to use the Narrows as a way of stopping it from getting to the south end, dealing with the town's infrastructure and how important that was.
right.
We've done emergencies on the water. We've done hurricanes. We've done biological weapons. We've had the National Guard down here because of bomb threats at town facility. We've trained with a matter of fact, we actually did the Responder '08, which I can show you the video of. It was professionally made in Hollywood. That I wrote part of the scenario for that, for the mid-coast um, response plan we did for that. So we train for all that. We advertise that we're going to train for those things. We invite people to come to those so they can see their emergency services that they pay their taxes to, so they can see it. And not only that, every year for the last 20 years, I've invited the select board when we do those exercises, so our town government has keen understanding of how we work. We also had a hazmat thing, a big hazmat and a bomb incident at PYY one time that we invited the whole town for. So I too was seen as a big person on communications and also transparency of showing people what we're preparing for. So I encourage and I implore all of you, when I put those out, please come to those exercises so that you can learn and so that you can participate in it, because you have a heck of a fire department, you have a heck of an ambulance service, and you have a heck of an emergency management department that's manned by about 20 people, and they do a great job. That's it. Thank you.
Well said, Fred.
Yeah, and hats off to you for having all of that because a lot of communities around the state and I'll be honest, around the country don't even meet the list you just rattled off, to be truthful. So that's actually really exciting. And as soon as I find out when you have your next,
Announced that Ukrainian startup Promet Aerospace.
I will be down there to observe, or I can also play.
So I just am aware of the time. We do have the select board meeting starts at 6. And it would be great to have a couple minutes ahead of time. I know that we are planning another one of these workshops. Sometime, I think in November is when we're hoping to get it on the calendar. So that we will invite people again. Do you want to just kind of wrap up, Alcina, with, what the rest of the process looks like from the hazard mitigation planning between now and this information gathering to submittal?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, information gathering, that's what we're doing tonight, another public meeting. And then on top of that, I will just be plugging away, getting information from your emergency operations plan, which I already have in my hand. And then basically after I have completed the product, I will present it to you folks. It will go out to public comment. And guys take a look at it, see what might need changes and whatnot, or if wording doesn't seem right, or if you see something that's missing or something that might need to be taken out, that could be revised. After that, then it goes to the state. The state also kind of combs through that before, and once they give it their blessing, that'll then get sent off to FEMA. FEMA Region 1 will review that. And then typically they'll go ahead and review that, bring back any questions or any revision comments and remarks to the plan. Those revisions I'll go ahead and redo, make whatever changes it might need. And then it goes back to FEMA. FEMA goes ahead and hopefully approves it at that point. It'd be nice on the first shot, but not all the time. And then you folks get it, and you just have to sign a paper to go ahead and adopt it, and you are good as gold and ready to submit it for applications for grants.
Cool. Thank you. And I will also give a big shout out to Fred, not only for the kind of day-to-day emergency training that he rattled off, but also the foresight. Fred worked with the Midcoast Council of Governments to get us this grant to allow us to do this planning exercise. So all of that is really important, and making sure that as a community, we are paying attention to being able to access as many resources as we can. So be on the lookout for our next workshop sometime, hopefully in November. Any last comments, questions? All right, then we will, is there? Sure.
Yeah, just real quick, a famous prize fighter once said that he was facing a title fight, he trained and he studied and he had a great fight plan, got into the ring, he was terribly excited, and his opponent hit him hard on the side of the head. He says, when you get hit that first time, your plan goes out the window. And it's the same thing here with emergency planning. When it's truly an emergency, sometimes it's too late. So we were hit by a big storm approximately a year and a half ago. What did the town learn from that? And what steps has the town taken, either as an entity of its own or encouraged or forced individuals to take to mitigate the next time we get hit? Because we will be hit. And I'm thinking of, the 45 docks got blown out. I think that's the number. And the main thing that happened to those docks is that because the water level in the storm surge were so high, it blew off all the decking on the docks. So a normal response might be, well, let's rebuild the docks and make them all be 3 feet higher or 2 feet higher. If we simply made that decision, that would be mitigation. That would have something to be accomplished looking forward based on what we have learned. I think there are a number of instances that are examples of things that can be learned from and that can be changed. The problem then becomes convincing the landowner who finds a dock very expensive, or convincing the landowner that riprap is really important to protect his shore frontage, without paying attention to the fact that the surge going around that does even more damage to his neighbor's property. There are lots of things that could be learned, and somehow we need more than just planning and kind of righteous conversation about things. We need to have an understanding of the impact of what the next storm is going to do, and figuring out what we can do in advance to mitigate it. And I don't see that happening. I don't see that, force coming into play for the next one. Just a comment.
Okay, well, I thank you, noted for, and, I think at the end of the meeting, I do think maybe it speaks to, a good time to have a conversation. I know that the Public Safety and Emergency Response did a lot of debriefing about what worked, what didn't work. We did learn a lot, as you say, and I think to Pete's point, it's a good time of year to maybe reflect and have a broader conversation about what we learned and what's changed and how to help people prepare. I know, for example, that a lot of people that lost their docks are going up at least 2 feet, often 4, and the state has also made sure that they can put some policies in place to help make it easier for citizens to implement those kind of resilience measures for their property, where otherwise it was more difficult from a permitting perspective. So let's come to the next one. Thanks all.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Alcina. I appreciate it.